Okay. Good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. My name is Janet Ng, Hearing Officer for San Francisco Public Works. Kim Stevens is the clerk of the hearing this morning. This hearing is being recorded and a sign-in sheet is on the table at the side of the room there. Please be sure to sign in for our records and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item you are here for. This public hearing is being held to consider one item, order number 200999, to consider the tentative approval for the following applications for surface-mounted facilities. Permit number 18WR-0396 at 390 Edinburgh Street. Permit number 17WR-0252 at 2620 Laguna Street. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to your testimony, and help the Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you of them. So therefore, if you want to be notified, please sign in. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first, present the item, give us an overall view of the permit application process, and describe how the applications arrived at today's hearing. Afterwards, I will have the speakers in the following order. I will ask that the protesters that submitted written comments to speak. Anyone supporting the protesters will speak next. Then I will give the applicant a chance to speak and to answer any of the protesters' comments. Then anyone supporting the applicant will speak. Lastly, any city agency, including Public Works, can speak and comment on any of the speakers. Each speaker will have up to 4 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it will mean that the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell will signal that the time is up. And when you come up to speak, please clearly state your name into the microphone. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you can submit written testimony to me at the end of the hearing. If I feel that questions are warranted, I will ask questions. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. So let's begin. Order number 200999. May I have Public Works staff?
Good morning. My name is Leo Palacios, and I will give an overview of the wireless permitting process. The city has limited authority over personal wireless service facilities. Wireless facilities are regulated at the federal level with limited local control, allowing some oversight of design. All authority invested to the city regarding these facilities is restricted to Public Works Code, Article 25, and Public Works Order 184504. The process includes review by San Francisco Public Works, the Planning Department, and the Health Department. If all departments recommend approval of the application, the city issues a tentative approval, and the applicant posts and mails this notice to any person owning property or living within 150 feet of the facility. There is a 20-day protest period, and if Public Works receives an objection to this notice, as we have for the applications on today's agenda, Public Works convenes a hearing. We have provided the hearing officer, Planning Department, and the Health Department with all the objections. Additionally, the applicant has responded to each protest. Public Works Code, Article 25, Section 1513H, which I have here, provide all available grounds the city may lawfully use to deny a personal wireless service facility permit. The first ground is if Health Department incorrectly determined that the application meet Article 25's health compliance standard. This would mean that the facility would not comply with the Federal Communication Commission's emissions guideline. The second ground is if the Planning Department incorrectly determined that the application meets the tier compatibility standards. This would mean that the facility would significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhood. Third ground doesn't apply to today's application since none of them are proposed adjacent to a city park or open space. The fourth and fifth grounds is if Article 25's requirements for obtaining a wireless permit are not being fulfilled, or that there is a proposed modification to the design, and that modification will not comply with Article 25 standards. For all the applications on today's agenda, we believe that tentative approval was issued correctly. The Health Department found that all applications meet Article 25's health standard, and under federal law, the city cannot deny an application for emission concerns if the facility is found to meet FCC guidelines. Additionally, the Planning Department found that all applications meet the tier standards and will not significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhood. Finally, there is no evidence in Public Works possession that demonstrate that these applications will not comply with Article 25 and Order 184-504 standard and requirements. We will be here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So permit number 18WR-0396 for 390 Edinburgh Street. Do we have anyone who would like to protest this item? Okay, do we have any supporters who would like to speak? Okay, I see no one, so moving on to the next item, permit number 17WR-0252 at 2620 Laguna Street. Do we have any protesters who would like to speak? Okay, please come up. Yes, please come up. Okay, again, before you begin, please clearly state your name into the microphone.
Ramesh Shivdasani, Ramesh Shivdasani, Shivdasani. I don't have any prepared statements, but I do believe that the box that Verizon is proposing to put next to our building at 1998 Broadway is right next to our building. It's a more powerful unit than they usually put, and it's noisier. I haven't heard the level of noise that it creates or the EMF that it emits. I also wonder why it needs to be next to the window of one of our existing apartments instead of further down in a more commercial area. Ours is a residential block between Vallejo and Broadway on Laguna. We're on the east side of Laguna. So basically, I don't think there's enough information provided about the noise level or the EMF radiation. And on those grounds, I believe most of us in the building object to this installation and would like our questions answered and addressed satisfactorily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other protesters who would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth McGee, MCGEE. I also live at 1998 Broadway. I'm in apartment 507. I would just like to add that a number of our units are west-facing. They have floor-to-ceiling windows, and their views will be completely obstructed, or well, not completely obstructed, but they will be obstructed by this. I think the additional height that this will add is about 6 feet to our current PG&E pole. And as a result of that, a number of our owners and residents have contacted the city stating that the aesthetics of it stating that their views will be impacted and that the aesthetics will be harmed by virtue of the tower. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other protesters who would like to speak?
Mark Stillbauer, Stillabbower, and I would like to concur with the previous two people, as the telephone pole, PG&E pole, is very close to windows in our unit. about 50 feet. It does obstruct. We are fortunate to have a bay view from the northwest corner, and that view is partially obstructed, as well as the possible impact to the value of properties in that stack. As we all know, pricing in commercial real estate is usually based upon comps, so it not only affects the immediate units, but also the units in the entire building. And I would like, obviously, it be to be reconsidered. I think it's going to be a noise factor. We have single-pane windows in the building, built in the 1960s, so noise does transmit or does come from the street, and this would just be one more place where those really close to the unit would hear noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other protesters who would like to speak?
My name is Lenny Hanson, Lenny Hanson. I reside at 1998 Broadway. I agree with everything that my residents in 1998 Broadway said. I'd like to add to that, however, besides the aesthetics of destroying the view and reducing property values and the noise values, Verizon is also very quickly going to have 5G, and we know that 5G is going to be extremely powerful, which is going to be another problem of radiation that no one has studied and looked into. So I add that to the arguments from our group as to why I heartily protest this project.
Thank you. Do we have any other protesters who would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant?
Good morning, Hearing Officer Ng. My name is Paul Albritton. I'm outside counsel for Verizon Wireless. I brought you a book this morning, which is just a summary of the information that we've already provided and has been provided to the protesters. We did email a copy to each of the protesters. It has a brief letter about the hearing officer's scope of review, photo simulation, a site map showing the poles in the adjacent block. It also has the Department of Public Health conclusion, the Hammett and Edison consulting engineers' calculation of emissions, as well as the planning department review, and then a couple sample protester responses. Each of the protesters got a letter and also information within the time frame under Article 25. As you probably know, Article 25 has been around for several years. It was just upheld by the California Supreme Court. Verizon Wireless has been working for about 4 years to put this network into San Francisco. We've got over 400 sites, and they're carefully located. The network and poles are located to minimize the number of poles, using existing infrastructure to minimize aesthetic impacts. And your grounds for review are very straightforward, as Leo said. You review whether the Department of Public Health properly made its decision. We believe they did, based on the Hammett and Edison consulting review, showing that the facility is well below the RF emissions allowed by for this facility. So we think in terms of San Francisco, once we meet the FCC guidelines, that's off the table. The Department of Planning also carefully reviewed the facility. There's a thorough review of the potential impacts in their review. They confirmed it doesn't significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the residential RH2 neighborhood, and also that it doesn't significantly impair any of the public views of buildings, landmarks, open spaces, or parks, which qualify it, makes it fit within the planning tier. And it's important that Article 25 protects public views but not private views. Now, in addition, there's a condition of approval that Verizon voluntarily agrees to, that this does not obscure the light and view into the adjacent buildings. And the department in Order 184504 has defined what obscure means. And that's a facility within 8 feet of a window that's more than 20 inches in diameter. And over the years, this design has been refined by Verizon and the Planning Commission so that our radios are narrow to fit on a utility pole and look as though they're part of the utility pole. In addition, the antenna itself is only 14 inches in diameter and designed to look like an extension of the utility pole itself. We have to put it up 6 feet above the utility lines. That's required by PG&E, but we're only increasing the height of this utility pole by 1/4, less than 1/4 of its existing height. And that's how we minimize aesthetics, by using existing utility like a utility pole in order to do that. And that's why we feel that the aesthetic impacts here we'll have, obviously, you'll be able to see it, but we don't, and we agree with the planning department that it doesn't obscure any views, private or public. With respect to the specific concerns that were just raised by the protester, this equipment makes absolutely no noise. There's no noise from this facility. There are no fans, there are no moving parts, passively cooled, no noise. There is a report by EBI Consulting that confirms that there's no sound from this facility. So single pane or double pane windows, they won't be able to hear this at all. With respect to view, I already spoke to that point. Our design minimizes the impact. The pole is increasing by less than a quarter, and it avoids putting any kind of major macro wireless facility in the area that might affect aesthetics. With respect to property values, I have to say that several federal courts have said that property value concerns are the same as concerns about health effects, and that they're as preempted as a grounds for denial of a wireless facility under federal law. Finally, there was a comment about 5G. 5G is not immediately slated for this area. 5G is not a higher power or of a concern, and is certainly not part of this application. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you feel we haven't answered any of the questions of the protesters. I do want to reassert that following installation, Verizon will be out there to test the facility to confirm that the emissions on the ground are about 3% of public standard, and they would be happy to test any of the apartments next to the facility when it's installed. If the residents or protesters contact, there's an email address with the Department of Public Works. But we think the grounds of Article 25 have been met. The Department of Public Health should be confirmed in their approval. The Department of Planning should be confirmed in their approval, and the Department of Public Works should be confirmed in their approval. And that's essentially your scope of review, whether they made a mistake or not, and we don't think they did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any supporters who would like to speak? That is basically everything. I don't believe there was any other discussion on the previous. I did see some people come in. So are there any additional comments, or would anyone like to speak on any of the items? Okay. Please come up.
That if they do 5G,
Please come up.
I understand from council, that means that there will be no 5G. So could Verizon reassure us that, number one, 5G will never, ever be used from that installation? And if it is, then that installation will be removed and 5G will be put elsewhere?
Okay. Would you like to address that? The question was regarding the 5G on this antenna.
No, 5G is being installed. Verizon is actually meeting with the city right now to come up with a design for 5G to put on light standards. It'll be beginning in perhaps towards the end of the year or next year in the downtown and civic center areas. If we were ever to put 5G on this pole, it would require a sidearm over towards the street, and it would also require another permit process, just like this. So we would be going through a permitting process, and whether that pole has a 4G facility on it or not, it would be the same permitting process, regardless of whether there was a 4G facility there, or we were just upgrading to 5G or putting new 5G on it. I'll leave it at that. 5G, I will say 5G is goes a very short distance, and so it tends to be located on the lower light standard poles or mounted further down the pole, but not towards the top. I hope that answers the questions.
Thank you. Okay, one more time. I know you've spoken already, but if you have something different, you can come up.
I'm, again, Ramesh Shivdasani. The council addressed the pole height going up by a third. I don't know how many feet that is. I mean, what is the actual increase in height in feet or yards or whatever units, or metric system? Anyway, could he answer that question, please?
Okay, thank you. I believe the question is, how tall is this facility?
So it's currently 48 feet. It goes up 11 feet 3 inches, and that's why I said it went up about a fourth, a little less than a fourth. A total of 51 feet. So it's
Thank you.
59, excuse me. That's all in the plans and in the materials. The Hammond Edison report.
That's inconsistent inconsistent with our plans and the information. We all think that that is inconsistent with the information we received. We were told it would go up 4 to 6 feet. 12 feet is quite a bit higher than what we were told.
So the PG&E requires that there be a 6-foot separation between power lines and the base of the antenna, and that's so that a lineman can stand there and work on an antenna if he has to without risk. That's not for us, that's for PG&E. And then the antenna itself is 4 feet.
Would you mind just showing
and-
would you mind showing the plan on that you'd submitted? That way it may be more clear.
Sure, Joanna Wang with Modus, who has processed the application, can show you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Officer. My name is Joanna Wing with Modus, an authorized representative of Verizon Wireless. In front of you is, if I could get it to stay there. There you go. A set of the plans that were submitted for the permit application. How do I zoom out? Maybe I can zoom out. Thanks, Leo. There you go. Okay. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see right here, it actually says that may be more helpful. Top of the proposed antenna canister will be at 59.7. Top of the existing wood pole is 48.4. So we'll be adding a bayonet extension here, plus the 4-foot antenna to the top of the utility structure. All of our equipment will be located at the bottom of the pole, between 7 feet and 18 feet.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Are there any additional comments for this? Okay, please come up.
My name is Elizabeth McGeegan. I'd just like to say that I think that the package that we were given was quite misleading. We were under the impression that this was going to be an additional 4 to 6 feet high. What you're now proposing is quite a bit larger and will affect a lot more owners within our building in terms of obstructing their views. In addition to that, it's going to be 12 feet is substantially more, and you're adding to the base as well. It sounds like this is a huge increase in size, not some sort of small antenna, which you keep trying to characterize it as. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, if you've already spoken, you can submit written testimony to me, but if you have anything new, please come up. So again, is there any further comment on this particular item?
I just have a comment about the law, the regulation. You mean the city protects only public views and it never protects private views? That was
Yes,
in the original presentation.
Yes,
That there's no protection whatsoever for private views in San Francisco?
Yes, that's what the ordinance says. Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Okay, I see someone else who wanted to speak. I'm guessing it's for permit 18WR -0396.
Hi, that's correct. This is Joe Kamisha with Exonet Systems. I know we kind of breezed through this item earlier in the agenda because the protester wasn't here. I just wanted to briefly confirm that we did receive one protest on this item, and it was similar concerns as you've heard with the other item on the agenda, and that is, exposure to radio frequency emissions. So I wanted to confirm that we received the protest, we reviewed it, and responded the same day, actually. We mailed out a letter detailing that the Hammett Edison analysis concluded that the exposure levels were less than 10% of the maximum permissible limit, and that was at the adjacent building about 15 feet away. The protester in the letter noted that they lived across the street. Didn't identify exactly which building it was, but the closest building across the street is roughly 50 feet away. That's 50, so more than 3 times the distance from the adjacent building where the highest exposure limit was, and again, that was less than 10%. So the expected exposure level across the street is significantly less than that. And again, the report indicated that anywhere at grade, within the public right-of-way, on the sidewalk, on the streets, was even lower than that. In fact, that was less than 1%. so literally 100 times less than the maximum exposure limit. So just wanted to highlight that, and happy to answer any questions you may have about that item as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have any further comments? Okay, well, that concludes this hearing. Thank you.